And I'm at a night out at Ceres, and I've just bumped into Ruth, who is going to introduce herself now and tell us what we're doing here.
Thanks very much, Mari. My name's Ruth Halbert, and I'm from Denmark on the south coast of Western Australia. A weekly event at Ceres, which is a Tamil feast, but particularly tonight, it's a fundraiser for the Tamil family from Biloela in Queensland who've been held in immigration detention for 150 days, Priya and Nades, and their two very young daughters, and they're in detention while they're waiting for the result of one of the legal appeals surrounding their case.
And I'll point people at Croaky to more information about the family.
Fantastic.
But you were telling me over dinner that you're very much involved in refugee politics at home in Denmark,
Sure.
a long way from here.
Yes.
Can you say what you've been up to? And it's included writing quite a few letters to the Prime Minister, I hear.
That's right. So when you're in a small country town, Denmark's only about 5,000 people and it's about 450 kilometres from Perth, we feel like we're a very long way away from where a lot of the action happens, for instance in Melbourne where there's so many protests and so on. And so I was motivated, I guess, mostly by an increasing sense of outrage about offshore detention and in particular the death of Omid Massamali on Nauru and the way he was treated. And I decided I needed to take action, even though I have no qualifications and I really felt that I didn't know everything about the situation. So I set up an ongoing daily practice of writing a letter to the Prime Minister, and I consider it part of my art practice as an artist. And so every day I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister about the refugees in either Manus or Nauru, and I used it as a way of amplifying their voices when I could. From doing that, I had the letters performed as a spoken word piece in a festival in our town, and then I was inspired by the author Isabel Carmody, who late last year was in the US finishing her PhD. She was particularly concerned with what was happening on Manus Island when the men in the Lombron Detention Centre were trying to be forcibly removed by Australia from Lombron into the town of Lorengau. And she started standing up every day with a poster which had some words about the situation and then the phrase, "I am watching," by which she said, even though I'm on the other side of the world, I see what the Australian government is doing to these people. I am watching and I want to hold them to account. And I thought that is something that I can do in the south coast in Denmark. So I started standing just on the street corner for an hour, not every day of the week, but most days, and I was holding up a sign which said, "Free Manus, Free Nauru," and "I am watching." And after a while, a few other local people said, "We really love what you're doing, can we join in?" And so since November, we have been running a weekly vigil every Friday evening from 4 till 5 p.m. We stand on the street with our signs, and in the neighbouring city of Albany, that also happens every Saturday morning from 11:30 to 12:30. We've also held protests outside the office of our local member, Rick Wilson, MP. We've held vigils. We held one early this year to commemorate the four years of the death of the murder of Reza Barati on Manus Island. And our most recent protest outside our local member's office was on the 5th anniversary of the legislation which came in 2013, which is why the refugees are held on Manus and Nauru. On that occasion, our federal minister, Rick Wilson, advised his office staff to close the office and lock the doors. So there were about a dozen of us, mostly members of the local Anglican church, holding our placards out on the street, and the office were too afraid to engage with us, even to have a conversation.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I'm only rushing through this a little bit because we've got a bit of a battery problem, but you tell me your group or connections to your group are also keeping an eye on the coronial inquest underway at the moment in Perth, yeah?
That's right. So there's a coronial inquest on the death of a man called Fazil Chagani, who died on Christmas Island. He had been in Australia. He was one of those unfortunate refugees, or it even happens to people who are not citizens of Australia, judged to be not of adequate character to stay in Australia and then locked up. And his case was such that he would have been in indefinite detention because there was no way he could be returned to Iran. He was a Kurd and had suffered extreme torture, and he would have been in extreme danger going back to Iran. And he ended up being found dead outside the perimeter fences of the detention centre on Christmas Island. So that is currently happening at the Coroner's Court in Perth this week. It started on Monday.
And can you say who's keeping an eye on that and how people can actually follow the work that you do too?
The organisation that's keeping an eye on that is RAN Perth, which is Refugee Rights Action Network. So if people look for that on social media, or Michelle Bowie, who I know has been able to attend the court at least for some of the sessions. And if people follow me, Ruth Halbert, on Instagram, and they can also see other actions that people in my local town have taken, including travelling to Manus and filming a documentary of meeting with some of the refugees there. The person who's done that is Dawn Barrington, who is a musician who lives in Denmark.
Fantastic to have sat next to you at this, Ruth. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thanks, Murray.